Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am on vacation right now. In fact, I will actually show you a quick peek out the back. This is down the Daytona Beach area, specifically Wilder Beach, which is a little south of Daytona Beach. Anyway, very beautiful place. I'm not quite put together. Early in the morning, everybody else is sleeping right now, but you know, the news doesn't stop. And I had mentioned in a recent video that I was like, starting to get a little bit concerned about Robotaxis not showing up and everything. Well, you know, I think I mentioned in that video, I was like, within a couple hours, that's going to be, you know, there will be something. So something happened, and that is, I believe that Terpene or whatever is the first person to have posted this. It's been reposted everywhere, but you can see here a Robotaxi in the wild is making a turn on a public street in Austin, waits for the traffic to go by, and you could see quite clearly in the front of it that there was nobody in the driver's seat. So also you can see the Robotaxi logo on the side when it goes past, so right there. If we freeze it, let me blow it up a little bit. You know, this you can only get so close in on this thing because it's a video, so fairly low resolution. But anyway, you can see Robotaxi here, and if I go forward, hopefully I can go forward just a teensy bit more. There we go. You can see quite clearly that there is nobody in the vehicle itself, so it is clearly driving on its own. We also have another one from Josh West. So you can see that there is something on top at this point, but that there is nobody in this vehicle as well. This one looks a little bit more stealth mode. Let's see if I can capture right there. You can just barely see that nobody's in it. This does not have the Robotaxi logoing on it or anything, but we're starting to see a couple of you know, some evidence of these vehicles being out in the wild. And let's see, behind this, you can see a regular Tesla. Unfortunately, that didn't pan, but my assumption here is that there is actually a person in the vehicle and behind that, because more than likely this vehicle is being, there we go. More than likely this vehicle is like, you know, chasing the other Robotaxi to make sure it doesn't do anything. There's probably a guy with a big red button just waiting to kill it if there's a problem or something. Difficult to see if anybody's in the backseat because it's shaded out, right? It's got the dark tinting and everything, but we're definitely seeing something. This is the 11th of June today as I record this, and the rumors are that the 12th of June is going to be some sort of event, but there has been, as far as I know, you know, again, Tesla might have announced this in the meantime, but as far as I know, there's no official announcement at this point about a Robotaxi event. So they may do it in kind of halfway stealth mode, but you know, putting Robotaxi on the side of the vehicle is a pretty significant sign that you've got something going on. So what is this vehicle? This is clearly a 2025 Model Y. It's the new version. You can see from the lines that it's the newer version, but it's got the same hardware as our current Model Y, which is the older version of it, so ours should be able to drive just as well as this one. And you know, they're going to start with 10. That's the plan, I think, is 10 of these vehicles in Austin, which is not very many, but then it is going to expand rapidly to, I heard, 1,000, so that's a lot. And that, reasonably speaking, if you think about taxis, should be able to handle, if you figure that maybe 70% of them are capable of running at any given time because the other ones have to be charging or there's maintenance or something like that, that would give you, you know, on the order of 700 taxis, Robotaxis available at any given moment. That's for a city like Austin, that's probably pretty reasonable. That probably takes care of a lot of the need, at which point they can then of course move to other cities if they have good luck in terms of not having any kind of bad accidents or anything like that. There's a degree of luck to driving, period. It doesn't matter if you're the best driver in the world, you can still have something happen, right? You're going across the intersection, somebody just blows through a red light and hits you. So things can happen. Anyway, the vehicle itself should be not being at fault in accidents, but there's a degree to which a Robotaxi being involved in an accident, even if it's not its fault, is going to be a thing. Anyway, assuming that stuff works well, we are going to get to a situation where I assume that Tesla will then request to roll out to other cities in Texas, since regulation of vehicular activity, whatever you want to call it, is generally regulated by the state, not the city. So if it's available in Austin, it has been regulated by the state to be legal in Austin to do that, and then they can move to Dallas, to Houston, to San Antonio. San Antonio actually might be a good second one because it's not that big of a city, but there are plenty of other places, and I guess Brownsville down in South Texas or something like that, near where SpaceX headquarters is. So they can roll out to a lot of different places as they have approval of this activity of the Robotaxi being available. So the second thing I wanted to talk about today is much less happy, and that is Apple's WWDC. I'm going to do a longer episode on that, but I just wanted to touch on the fact that last year before Apple's WWDC, so that would have been 24, I said, boy, they really better show off some stuff about AI, or else they're becoming less and less relevant to the world. They're becoming kind of a hardware manufacturer that's a bit of an also-ran, and that was 12 months ago. And they announced a bunch of stuff about, AI and Siri and doing a whole bunch of things, and supposedly showed off a lot of really cool features, although a lot of them were really kind of lame, like the Genmojis and stuff like that. But anyway, that was like, okay, they're making steps. They're starting to move towards doing artificial intelligence in a real way. And then we just saw it kind of fall apart over the summer and into the fall of last year, and really not a peep. And then this year's WWDC has been all about liquid glass and the new iPad OS and things like that, which is, nice and all, but really, boy, did they not want to mention artificial intelligence. In fact, I saw an article that said that they mentioned Siri twice in the WWDC this year. If you remember last year, it was some ridiculous number. It was like 50 or 60 times. So they were talking about Siri. And this year, they just didn't talk about any of that. And in interviews, people are like, oh, the Apple executives like Craig Federighi and such are saying like, oh, don't worry about it. We don't want to come in too early. We want to do this right, and we want to make sure it's integrated into the system. Sounds a little bit like they are in scramble mode. It's kind of crazy to think about a company that can afford all the engineers they want, and honestly could afford acquisition. I have suggested months ago, that Apple should purchase Anthropic, because it's a relatively inexpensive way to get into the game at the front end of things. And Anthropic has a very good product, and Apple has a lot of money. Why wouldn't they just purchase a company like that and just make it happen? Maybe they knew something about this Reddit lawsuit that was coming up, and they were like, ooh, that's poisoned the well, and we don't want to deal with that. But I don't know. Anyway, it just seems kind of sad and lame that Apple is in such bad straits that they are basically saying like, oh, don't worry about it. AI is not that important right now. It's the kind of thing where it's like a long-term vision and stuff. And Craig Federighi actually made a comparison between the internet and artificial intelligence. And he said, Apple enabled the internet and made it really, really cool, and made things like Amazon.com and websites and Google search and stuff like that available to consumers, which they did. I mean, they had the airport Wi-Fi little UFO looking thing in the later 90s. So yeah, they did, but there's a difference between the internet and artificial intelligence, a really, really drastic difference, which is that the internet is generative in the sense that people generate content and then you go out and search it, whereas AI is generative in the sense that these companies are generating these answers and they're controlling the answers basically, right? They have control over the models. They have control a lot over what these models are doing, how they're trained, what they say to people, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a big difference between having a very, very disparate. The whole point of the internet originally was from ARPANET, which was to create a diffuse bunch of nodes that could reroute to each other in real time in case there was some sort of, honestly, nuclear war. That was basically what it was. That was the goal of this thing. And then you cross that with a bunch of hippies in the 1970s, and they create the modern internet. But that's a very, very different kind of entity than artificial intelligence. That's diffuse. That's, you can go right now, today, you could make on Wix.com or just start up a domain. You can make a website and it can exist on the internet, and you can become famous, and it could become a really big website or something. But you can also, there are millions and millions and millions of websites that only a few people have ever visited, including ones that I designed myself over the years. So that situation is radically different than these AI foundation model companies that are spending tens to hundreds of millions of dollars to train these things, spending at least that much money on data centers and creating these massive data centers. And that is a very, very different beast. So Apple kind of comparing it to the internet and how they enabled the internet and enabled people to find things, that's not a good analogy. I don't know what a good analogy would. I guess maybe it would be something like somebody using ChatGPT as opposed to building ChatGPT. It's like, yeah, okay, that's cool, and it's really neat if you can package that up in a way that people can access it more easily, but that's not really the heart of what's going on here. It's not a diffuse bunch of nodes. It's these very, very centralized entities that have a lot of money that are able to pour into it and create these foundation models. Very, very different model. So, you know, I hate to say this. I have been an Apple fan since before I owned a computer, because my family couldn't afford one. And I had a friend who had an Apple II and loved it and thought it was amazing. I thought Steve Jobs' vision was amazing. I purchased a Macintosh, original Macintosh computer in 1984, and have always owned Mac computers myself. I've never spent my own money on like Windows machines or things like that, or since the iPhone came out, other brands of phones. But I'm starting to look at, you know, at Google Pixel and Android operating system for phones, because at least for phones, I still like Apple's laptops. I'm recording on a laptop here, but I think that Apple is just falling to a point where they're just going to become irrelevant in terms of the AI play, and that is becoming, the integration of that is becoming more and more important. You know, I don't have to worry about it now because I have a new phone, I have a new laptop, so I'm in a situation where I don't need to be looking to purchase anytime soon. But when I do, I'm going to have to give it some serious thought this time. It's a sad statement about Apple. I go back to the fact that Steve Jobs, my goodness, died in 2011. It's been, right, 2011? I think that was it. So 14 years ago. If he had lived until today, Apple would not be in this situation. They would have a vision. They would be pursuing that vision, and we would have a very different world if he had not passed away. So very, very sad. And I just think that the ship is being run by a bunch of bean counters at this point, and they just have no idea how to create something really new. They're just kind of iterating and creating liquid glass effects and stuff like that, which is really unimportant. Okay, so anyway, that's my rant about Apple. I'm very sad. It's a sad rant. I'm not saying this out of anger. I'm saying this out of deep sadness that they are no longer the company they used to be. But on the happy end of things, we've got this. We've got our actual Robotaxi. So on the flip side of making progress, and yes, Tesla has taken forever, but it's a hard job. This is not something that anyone said was possible, right? Had a lot of unknown unknowns, including the fact of, is this going to be a possibility? And yet we are finally seeing it. And the advantage, again, that Tesla has here is that once this becomes enabled, they don't have to have specialized cars that are being built and have to be geofenced and all of that kind of stuff. We've got regular vehicles, the ones that you and I either own ourselves or can go out and purchase tomorrow, and those vehicles can be enabled as robotaxis, and that is going to be a game changer, because that means as fast as they can get regulatory approval, again assuming that these vehicles operate as designed and don't cause accidents or cause those crazy Waymo or Cruise situations where a whole bunch of them gather together and start honking at each other and stuff, right? Assuming we don't get that kind of craziness, and Tesla's going to be judged harder than these other companies. These other companies have been judged a little bit harshly, but Tesla's going to be judged very, very harshly. If they don't get it right, people are going to nail them. But if it does work right, then Tesla can expand as rapidly as regulation will allow. So Apple, sad. Tesla, this is very, very exciting news. What do you all think about this? Let me know in the comments while you're down there. If you don't mind liking the video, it really helps other people find it. And if you want to subscribe for more of this kind of content and a bigger rant about Apple with more details in the near future, definitely subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.